Strange Tale. We've brought this horrible, horrible movie up at least 5 separate times on this podcast across the different iterations of this podcast.
Yeah, once every 2 years to make sure nobody ever watches it again.
If we decide to ever monetize this shit, you know that we're going to have to sit down and do like a commentary on it.
Oh, God. Fuck that.
And I know.
I don't think you understand how much I would need to be paid to sit through that movie again.
Well, that's the point, right? We'd have to be paid. But yeah, the Mario Galaxy movie. I watched it twice now, once in theaters and once with you. When I watched it in theaters, it was just like, okay, I kind of know what I'm getting into. I watched the first Mario movie. I'm just kind of there to see what ends up on the screen. To see the interest in like what the different iterations of Mario are going to be represented, what wants to be shown, like the music, yada yada yada. Like I was not there for the story. I think that if you show up to that movie for the story, you're gonna have a real bad time because that story is basically not a story. It's a sequence of things that happen, very independently of any sort of agency that the characters themselves have or lack thereof in some cases. It's just things happen.
The biggest part of it for me was just like the actual movement of the plot basically felt like it never had anything to do with any action a character was taking.
Yeah. I mean, it's not really video games. It's kind of video games adjacent in the sense that like internet culture picked it up and ran with it. But I saw the Backrooms movie too very recently. That was really good. Like, I was surprised with how much I liked it. And, it's A24. It's a very good production company, or publisher, I guess, in some cases. But when you think of movies that are born from internet culture, like Slender Man movie or Five Nights at Freddy's movie, it's like, okay, these are pieces of media that exist specifically for the people that like them. It's like, hey, that thing that you like, here's the movie of it, go see it, and it's like it's exactly what you expect. For the Backrooms film, I think that it had something to say, and I think that it's a media literacy thing, right? Because there were some people I talked to, like, this is a goofy-ass movie, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't think that you really took away anything from it other than what you were looking at. But I think that the Backrooms has always been kind of allegorical to a lot of things, depending on who you were talking to at the time and like what corner of the internet you were on. But it has a lot to do with memory and mental health, and I think it's really worth a watch. To anyone listening, I know our burgeoning listener count is really going to help to bolster the very dwindling sales of the Backrooms film. But I would recommend it a watch. I think it was very good, especially like as a horror film. Like I don't really do horror that much, not because I don't like it, but because I kind of have like unreasonable standards when it comes to horror. So
what are some of your horror movies that you like actually do like a lot?
Other ones that I like?
Like just one or two. What are some like horror movies where you're like, oh yeah, this is just a good movie?
Midsommar.
That's a pretty good one. It's pretty good.
It's definitely up there because again, like it's very dramatic and traumatizing and scary, but not for the sake of being scary, right? It's like it's telling an actual interesting story. So yeah, again, A24, I hate to like hype them up and like be such a fucking fanboy, but I think they pick the right things. They pick the right people. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, oops, this is not a movie podcast, everybody, but hello and welcome.
Video games hello.
Video games hello.
Literally, your me in Tomodachi Life does it better than you, because he remembers to say it every time.
I'm Neil.
And I'm Matt.
And this is the Audio Games Podcast. I need to, gotta get the branding in there. I almost forgot somehow. We have a lot to talk about this week. I'm just kind of a little bit of a mess because of that.
Yeah, I'm not organized at all. I came out of Fanime late last month, and like looking at the calendar, it's like, oh, last month wasn't that long ago, so I guess maybe it's kind of justified that I'm scattered. But Uh, I was at the event. There was some video game adjacent things happening there, but it really was mostly just like anime culture stuff. Maybe you heard about the viral feet juice incident at ParkCon. I was there. I was at Ground Zero. I got cleared out from the park by the police around 2 a.m.
I did not hear about that much of it. I did hear about the feet juice thing happening and being like, what the fuck?
Yeah, for clarity, it was not the feet juice that caused the police to clear us out at 2 a.m.
Okay, sure.
I'm not going to really get into that too much, but the point is, like, I'm tired, I'm scattered, there's been so much going on. But, I think that it stands to reason that we get to the brass tacks on this and start talking about the big one, Summer Game Fest, starring Dorito Pope himself, Jeff Keighley. When we talk about big presentations in the year of our Lord 2026, so many of them have been disappointing to me. We get on here and we say the same thing almost every time, where it's like, wow, all the games kind of bled together. All the games are moving towards photorealism. They look the same. Yada, yada, yada. This year, I felt surprisingly good about it. I don't know if there was something going on with me or like if the actual showing was good. So I figure probably best to run through it, at least the things that we remember, the things that we think were valuable to talk about.
Sure. I will say I was not as high on it. I think there was a better variety. Things didn't bleed together as much for me in the Summer Game Fest specifically. But not a lot of things excited me a whole lot either. So,
okay, well, let's go through it, and maybe you'll remember and feel differently.
Sure. I will say they kicked it off with a banger.
Yeah, no, the Resident Evil Veronica. Speaking of horror, I don't know if you ever played Code Veronica for the Dreamcast.
Not really. I know it was like the last of the classic style ones that they ever made, though.
Yes, it was. I played it on a Dreamcast that I borrowed from my sister's ex-boyfriend. And let me tell you, that was a tough play. Like, even back then. Like, I'm talking, it must be more than 15, 20 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And that was, like, even then I was like, this is kind of clunky. So, when they say that they're remaking it, I have a feeling it's going to be a big remake. Like, we're not talking like they're trying to do every beat by beat thing. And, it was a goofy story, too. It was back in that era of Resident Evil, so how they decide they're going to realign that to, like, everything else going on in what is essentially one of Capcom's most successful series in this day and age, I'd be very curious. But it's a very logical move that I didn't really think of them doing. Like, Code Veronica never really lived in my head as something worth revisiting, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I was maybe just a little surprised. It feels like Final Fantasy IX just happened. And I know they're Final Fantasy, Jesus. Resident Evil 9 just happened.
Okay, I was going to say, what are we talking about?
I'm scattered.
Okay.
Resident Evil 9 feels like it just came out still to me. And I know they're basically putting a Resident Evil out every year. Like either a remake or a new one, kind of every other year is sort of the cadence, it feels like. So it's not surprising to be like, oh yeah, Veronica is coming. But it was a little bit of just like, dang, I haven't even like touched 9 yet, and I feel like I just came out a couple months ago and we're already looking at the next thing that's going to be more of this. It feels a little bit, to me at least, like it is juicing the stone a little bit too much.
Well, I don't know. They're on quite the run. Like
exactly,
like,
they've all been good. Like I can't fault them for doing this. They're selling well. They all seem like they're of a high quality. Like Capcom has been hitting it out of the park. But it was just a little bit of a like, dang, I wish it was September by the time I heard about this.
When I think about what was shown overall, and I know that I'm kind of zooming out here, but when I think about what was shown overall this Summer Game Fest, and I compare it to like what was going on in the previous big game shows, I think a lot about how like there was so much focus on everything needs to be multiplayer, everything needs to be live service, and I feel like this year, the part of the reason that I've been optimistic is because they've really pulled away from that. Like, there's a lot of talk about, like, single-player experiences that are more focused, and, you know, when you can do that, you can generally develop a better game instead of trying to, like, figure out how you're going to inject a cash shop into every game, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, the thing that happened right after Veronica was they kind of cooled off a little bit. They brought the developers of Cuphead, and they did a little puppet show to announce that they were working on another hand-drawn game, but also that they were putting out a retro-style Cuphead game called Mighty Cuphead Adventure. It looks retro. You know, I don't have any like big expectations, but at the same time, I'm glad that they're still, you know, making stuff. So, I don't know if I'll play it, but I'm sure some people will, and I'm sure I'm going to see it all over streaming. I don't remember when that was coming out, but I guess probably relatively soon. And then, after cooling off with Cuphead, they went back into horror with Alien Isolation 2.
They didn't show a ton for this one. I don't remember if you ever played the first one, did you?
I played a little bit of it.
Okay. That first game is substantially better than I think a lot of people give it credit for. It's too long, I think, is the biggest issue. I mean, it just overstays its welcome a little bit.
Judging by the crowd reaction, it was pretty well received.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's also like second, third headline for the show, so I think that they were anticipating that it would be a popular reveal.
The next one that really made me go, oh, right, this exists. Gen Atlas was shown a little bit after this. This is the one by the Shadow of the Colossus devs who left Sony.
Yeah.
And they had shown this, I want to say like 2 years ago, with like a very, very, very early and just like one little bit of something. Now they show
the guy gets
a
into
lot
the head,
more.
And then the giant tidal wave of whatever the hell that was, and then the head floats above it.
Yeah, but now they were showing tons of climbing all over these giant robot mechs. They were showing flying around that head a lot more. They just had so much more to show, and it looks interesting and unique in a way that that is maybe the game from this show that I am personally the most excited about.
Yeah, no, I can see why that would be the case. I mean, you've been playing a lot of very vibey games in these kind of like ruin environments, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's kind of your wheelhouse when it comes to just the vibe. But there was also what looked like more traditional combat in there. So it does seem like a kind of a different thing than what that studio would normally put out, what that director would normally put out. But at the same time, it definitely has a lot of the same DNA. And I think, like you said, the most interesting thing is that the visuals are so distinct. And, you know, I'm looking for that in games. I'm always looking for that in games. But yeah, so they showed some of that. Again, I don't remember when that's supposed to come out. I'm really bad at keeping track of, like, release dates. But I know that there's a ton coming out in autumn.
September this year is going to be fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Just like every single... It feels like there's about 20 games just shown this weekend that are all coming out in September.
But one that isn't, and I know this because I've been following the game's development for a while now, is Stranger Than Heaven, by the same studio that brought you Like a Dragon and the Yakuza series, which are, I guess, the same thing, really. They had Snoop Dogg come out and talk about how Tupac is in the game now. And it's one of those things where, like, the first time someone... Like, I was literally watching several streams of the Summer Game Fest, and one of them was like, oh my god, Tupac is alive. Like, it's like... the whole the crackpot theory that Tupac is not actually dead is not helped by the fact that Snoop Dogg is putting him in Stranger Than Heaven, and I don't really know how I feel about it. Like, I just recently got over the fact that Snoop Dogg's in the game, And part of the reason that I've been able to reconcile that feeling is because the fucking song is such a banger. I don't know if you watched the more recent trailers for Stranger Than Heaven, but my God, that song is so good.
The Tupac thing is crazy. Definitely a shocker. I don't really know a lot about Tupac. Like I wasn't old enough or listening to Tupac when all of that shit went down. And I also don't really know the state of his likeness and estate and everything. I did see something from Timur Hussein of GameSpot talking about this a bit, where he's going like, he had a lot of reasons to be really apprehensive about this, because he does follow this stuff, and I guess there's some amount of like the estate that would be okaying this kind of thing isn't necessarily like his family.
Yeah, there's a difference between the estate and the family.
And the family might not be cool with this, and that's the kind of thing that makes it like a little bit like uneasy in a way, but like...
Yeah, and the thing is, they make it out like Snoop was the one who decided to do this. Right?
Yeah, it's so weird the way that they presented it that way.
And, I mean, if they're leaving it up to him, they're allowing him some very big creative decisions for this game. And, you know, it's one of those things like, okay, to what degree is Tupac in the game? To what degree are we using the likeness of this dead person? I mean, he's already, like, got the hologram thing going on. And, you know, this is a discussion that was touched upon when we had Norman Reedus and Death Stranding, and I was like, it's weird that you can literally have an actor or a person's likeness and just remove all agency that they would normally have. But, you know, this is the dystopian future we're living in. But hey, still excited for that game, let me tell you. Anyway, moving on, you know, there's some things that were kind of interesting but didn't really strike me. There's the Hex, and then the Dead by Daylight, Mortal Shell 2. Did you have any interest in Mortal Shell 2?
I feel like they showed it better somewhere else, and that first game was interesting enough that, like, I'm willing to give it a shot, but I'm not like, ooh, when that comes out, I'm going to make sure to play it right away. It's just like, it's going to go onto the list. Sure. We'll see if I get to it.
Okay, well then I think the next big one was the Gundam game, which
looked like not a Gundam game at all. That was a wild one.
Like, you don't even need to be a fan of Gundam to look at that and be like, that's not very Gundam-y. It's like Gundam May Cry, you know?
Yeah, and it was like fighting fucking aliens and shit, which I've actually watched a few Gundam series now. They don't really fight aliens in those. They're always fighting each other.
Yeah, no, it's always like a space opera war thing, not like a deep space horror situation. But the thing is, like, Gundam, for a lot of people, especially like the diehard, like, early fans, the appeal of the robot is that it doesn't move like it's some ninja human, right? It has the weight, and you have to justify the movement and the speed by, like, just tremendous jets and things. And this thing's just, like, jumping around like it's fucking Hattori Hanzo.
Yeah, this thing was definitely not the classic style of Gundam. It was some of the new Gundam.
I expect this game to be very divisive. But I don't, you know, I'm not a big Gundam fan. I'm not a mecha fan, but it's nice to see that they got a big budget game. I just don't know that this is what people want, so we'll find out. And then they show the hokey, very cringy egg carrying game. And then it went into Control, which I think is more your wheelhouse. So if you want to talk about Control.
Yeah, Control was shown at more than one thing, and gosh, every time I see more of that game, I'm just like, fucking give it to me. I am a fan of Remedy at this point, just as a company. You know, I enjoyed Remedy games before I knew who they were. Back in fucking Max Payne days, right?
Sure.
And they've come a very long way. They have made some very different games than that, and I know you really couldn't get on board with Control just in general.
The vibe was just like... Yeah, I just couldn't... It just didn't feel fun. There's nothing... There's nothing like it felt like I was the director of the oldest house, and I was having to do a bunch of things that I wasn't. I mean, in that way, I was more immersed than ever, right? Like, like clearly, she doesn't want to be dealing with all this shit, and you know what?
Yeah,
Same, bro, same.
the like brutalist architecture and everything, I know, definitely made the game feel oppressive in a way that turned you off
Yeah,
from it.
I mean, I think that the succinct way of saying it is it's a bummer game. It felt like a
Yeah,
bummer game to me.
yeah. I fucking loved it though, and this game looks like it might be a different type of bummer, especially seeing Remedy try to go into this like action game style. And we've seen very little gameplay. We've seen a lot of the vibes of it. I'm very into those, but I have seen one or two industry people say like they've had hands on and it feels really good, and I'm like, great. If this game felt okay, I would still push through it because I'm that into what Remedy is doing in general that I would want to see what happens anyway. If it feels good and plays good, like fucking icing on the cake.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Okay,
think that's this
so
year. I think that's one of the September games.
if it's not this year, I'm going to be very surprised because they've been showing this for a while.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's one of the September games in the like giant list.
And then we had some very bold statements from the following game. Guild Wars 3 saying that it's the natural evolution of MMOs. It's to release a new MMO of that profile in this day and age. I guess you kind of have to make some justifications to its existence, right? Because people are still playing the same MMOs from like a decade ago.
More.
Or more in some cases, yeah. So it's hard to really tell what is going to be different about Guild Wars 3 that really sets it apart. But my congratulations and condolences to them for making that move. I am curious, if only from someone who is going to be watching from the sidelines, because I am not going to be playing any new MMOs. And then right afterwards was Star Wars Galactic Racer, which, let me tell you, game looks good.
Yeah, yeah.
The sense of speed, the detail of the terrain, it looks good.
The game looks like the Burnout. Like it doesn't look like Burnout aesthetically, but when you see the way that like they do some of these like body checks of these pod racers and stuff, it is doing the camera movements and everything that Burnout does when you do a takedown. It is wearing the devs put their own spin on there, and it is like former Burnout people that are making this game, but like you can see it, and that is awesome.
I mean, from the moment it was announced, I kind of had my eyes peeled for this one because I played the Nintendo 64 game so much, and it was one of the expansion pack games. So it looks slightly better than all the other N64 games. Very slightly. So yeah, I think that's going to be a really good one. I'm hoping that it's not good. I want them to take the X-Wing route where they like put it out for like $40, but I doubt that they're going to. I think it's going to be a $60 game, maybe $70.
Probably
in this day and age.
Probably everything keeps getting more expensive.
Yeah. Then there's a couple of zombie games, which is you're gonna get those. And then we had Virtual Fighter Crossroads. Virtual Fighter, the bastard redheaded stepchild of fighting games. I think that what they're doing is very much trying to create the distinct differences against the backdrop of all these other fighting games by really leaning into the story mode. They definitely featured that very heavily.
The story mode being made by the Yakuza people is something.
Yeah, it kind of makes me wonder like what the actual transitioning gameplay is from like just going about your business into the actual fighting. But Street Fighter kind of did something like that with its World Tour mode or whatever they're calling it.
Yeah, I honestly think with the continued success of Street Fighter 6, a lot of other companies that are thinking about putting out big games like this are probably saying we have to do something with single player
Yeah,
in a
again,
more
that's kind of
expansive way.
that kind of felt like the theme. Like I said, like there's a lot of focus on the idea of like, yeah, not everything needs to be multiplayer. Not everything needs to have like a
Hmm.
fucking uh, a pass that you buy and you have to commit to playing it for this many hours or whatever. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of attachment to Virtual Fighter as a series. I definitely had played Virtual Fighter 2, a fairly good chunk, but like when they, I think that the thing that makes it the most self aware was at the end. They do like kind of like a character reveal, and one of the characters is like, "Oh my god, it's blah blah blah," and then the other character's like, "Who's that?" It's like, yeah, that's kind of like what Virtual Fighter is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, and then we had a sizzle reel for Nintendo. We showed Grounded 2. There was some sort of Mafia announcement that was cool if you played all of the Mafia games, which is definitely not me.
Sure.
They brought out Jigsaw on a tricycle, and it was exactly what you'd expect with Jeff Keighley on the periphery of the camera. Um, and then another Star Wars game. We had Zero Company, which is basically Star Wars XCOM. In fact, they say XCon in the trailer because they're talking, oh, we're a bunch of ex-cons. It's like, was that on purpose?
No, I think so. I'm pretty sure this is even being made by Firaxis, isn't it?
I would not be surprised considering some of the camera angles they took while they were showing gameplay. It's very much, might be even the same engine, honestly. But yeah, I feel like it's a fair pairing. I don't think there's been any Star Wars games like this, and I think that there's room in that arena for Star Wars content. There's certainly worse decisions that could be made with the property. I mean, look at what we have in the theaters right now. Um,
Sure.
so yeah, and then they showed a vampire thing, and then I don't know if you care about that. Do you care about the
Eh,
vampire thing? Yeah,
not really.
I feel like it's kind of been played out. The zombies, vampires stuff.
Honestly, the
Um,
next thing that they showed that I cared about at all was Street Fighter, so.
okay, well let's get through this then. Um, let's see. They did the Among Us stuff. Don't really care. I feel like that's kind of run its course. They showed DLC for 007 First Light, which apparently has been a well-received game.
Yeah, people like it.
Um, there was the Cyberpunk Edge Runners collab with Wuthering Waves, which is a Genshin clone, and then Monster Hunter Wilds Ascendance. So I went back and I watched that trailer, and thank God it is not just choppy. That was definitely the stream that was choppy.
Okay, sure.
When me and Neil talked about this off the podcast, like right after a lot of these announcements happened,
We did.
I was talking about like how it was really unfortunate that the stream wasn't working very properly across all of the different platforms they were streaming to, because this Wilds announcement probably just brought a lot of people back to their experience with Wilds, which was very much like the broadcast in that it was choppy and unstable. Um, but looking at the actual trailer uninterrupted, I want to be optimistic. I actually talked with one of my friends today. I was doing a barbecue before I came back and we were recording, but she's a Monster Hunter fan all the way back to Freedom Unite like me,
Mm,
and she was talking about how the problem with the Monster Hunter franchise is that whenever a new game comes out, it's always going to feel incomplete because you just came off the last Monster Hunter game, which had its full expansion, and so yeah, I do feel like that. Basically every time a new Monster Hunter game comes out, and this is their chance to fix everything. And considering how Capcom has been with literally all their other stuff, you really hope that they nail it because they're on a streak here, and
for sure, for sure.
I don't want it to be taken down with the franchise that I've come to love. But at the same time, they're doing the gotcha game right now, and it's just like, man, I really wish that wasn't a thing.
Yeah,
Um,
I know I'm being a little hyperbolic when I say I didn't care about anything else, and then Monster Hunter came up. Y'all know I love Monster Hunter. This specific announcement was a little rough for me just because I like Wilds, but it is my least favorite of all the Monster Hunters I've engaged with. And while I do look at this and go like, okay, the expansion has the opportunity to fix a lot of things and make it better, I'm going to buy the expansion. I'm going to play it. That much is like a known quantity for me. But I I don't feel the hype for it the way that I felt the hype for Wilds itself before it came out.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that when we talk about our experiences growing with Monster Hunter, you are going through the same thing that I went through with World, where
Mm.
it was very much a Spartan experience before World came out, and then they introduced the Hunter Flies, and it made a lot of the things a lot more straightforward and easy. And then Wilds came out, and they were trying to. I mean, we can speculate, but I think that the situation was that they were trying to broaden the appeal to a wider audience, and they rounded out a lot of those edges even further. And so, like, you talk about, like, oh, I'm on the back of this thing that's literally just going to take me straight to the monster. I don't even need to get off of it to, like, do the things that I normally would. I just shoot a hook at items or whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of like how I felt about with World. So, is this a normal evolution for games? And I think that's just kind of how it is. We're just getting old and crotchety.
Yeah,
It doesn't
to a certain
excuse.
extent, I agree. There's another part where just like I haven't even really played World or Rise very much in a long time. I still know how to navigate those maps, and I never learned how to navigate any of the fucking maps in Wilds.
Yeah. Well, you didn't have to.
Exactly. So, like, I
Kind of
can't
like
jump in there and be like, I want to go to this area. I have to be like, fucking get me on my thing, I guess. It can take me there.
Kind of like how you never had to paintball the monster or know what its patterns were moving between the different sectional maps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's I think that I can accept a lot of the changes. It's just the technical issues that are problematic, and them announcing the Switch 2 version at the same time felt a little tone deaf, maybe. Because if they get that and it works well, it's just like, well, then what the fuck happened with PC, man? Um. Anyway, so that was a thing. I will be buying that and playing it for at least 20 hours and then complaining about it in the future. So look forward to that. um. And then the most generic name of a game ever. There was Swords of Legends, which looked like a Souls-like kind of, but there was no stamina. And then
Yeah, that was just like a boss fight, and it was like, all right, we have no context for anything. It's okay.
it was a boss fight, and then the boss talked a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I remember. And then there was the Hot Wheels game, and then they showed that Evangelion is doing a crossover with Sonic, which is to be expected. Attack on Titan 3 game. They did that Sea of Remnants trailer, I guess you could call it, where it was a bunch of like wooden puppet looking guys singing pop punk music. I feel like that's becoming a trend where they just do a trailer with pop punk music. Because there was that
better
last
than the former like just take a popular song and make it moody trend.
yeah, put Mad World
Yeah,
in
exactly.
every fucking game. Okay, so then oh yeah, the Pal World 1.0.
Right.
Um I hadn't realized it wasn't 1.0 yet, but at the same time I know they've been like juggling a lot in terms of dealing with their legal battles. So I think that maybe they were waiting for things to settle before they went with that, and I guess they must have won because the item that the character uses in the trailer is very spherical. And so I guess Nintendo doesn't own the right to spheres,
I
which
seem
is,
to recall they settled out of court, so who knows?
well, they sell it in a way where Palworld is allowed to use spherical objects, so good for them. And then Wolf Among Us. I know this is a thing that you should care about,
Yeah, the Wolf Among Us
despite the
2
fact
thing
that
that they
this,
sort of said, hey, this is happening like years ago, and they re-announced it again. Didn't really show us anything, and then said, also, we're remastering the original if you want to play through that again. Um, that original game is really good. Like, I don't remember it super well at this point because it's been so long, but what I do remember is the main problem that game had was the episodic nature is a cool idea, and that game felt like it got screwed by it because their release cadence, something went wrong with it, and it was like between each episode, it was anywhere between like a month and 3 months, and you just didn't know.
Hmm.
Whereas if you could have played like one episode of that every 3 weeks or something for 5 episodes, would have been incredible. And if you can play it more together, it is still very, very good. But yeah, it's really unfortunate the way that that game originally came out. So I'm sure this will be a great way to replay it.
I would think so. I mean, Telltale, when you talk about the release cadence for it when Telltale was first putting it out, like, this is also a time that Telltale was kind of going through all its problems that make it notable that there is a Wolf Among Us 2 coming out, right? So yeah, I mean, people seemed weirdly excited about that. I didn't realize so many people liked Wolf Among Us, but maybe they were just celebrating the fact that Telltale's still a thing, so... I don't think we're ever going to get a Game of Thrones season 2 from them, so, it's interesting to see what will be coming with their newfound existence. And then, there was the Stellar Blade thing, which I'm very surprised that there's another Stellar Blade coming out so soon. I think that there was some controversy that followed the release of that trailer with people talking about things, and it's like, I don't really care because I never got invested in Stellar Blade to begin with, but who knows whether or not we're going to touch on that again, depending on how things played out.
The stink on that original game from just the not even backlash on the game specifically, but the types of people that seemed to be trying to hold it up before release just really turned me off of ever wanting to engage with it.
Yeah, it got put under a microscope for sure, where there were a lot of people saying this game's going to be one of the best games ever. Look, they're blatantly sexualizing this character. Real masturbatory individuals, let me say. And then the game came out, and the developers changed some things, and the same people who were celebrating how masturbatory the game was got upset, right? And it's just like... Yeah. What do you want, man?
and like I've heard good stuff about that game, and I'm sure this new one will probably play great too. It's just
against the backdrop of all the conversation.
That time when it happened, that just has turned me so off the series. That like,
and I think,
yeah,
looking at what the new game is, I almost feel like they might be leaning into that controversy. I mean, obviously it must have done well because they're making another one, right? So, yeah. Anyway, that's a thing. So let's talk about Street Fighter 6.
Yeah. So there was a leak a while ago. Hey, this Final Fantasy character is going to be in it. Everyone was expecting that, and they tried to kind of make you go, oh, see, it's not happening. But a lot of other things have been leaked too, like, hey, Vega's gonna come out and all that. And that all proved to be wrong.
Except for the Final Fantasy character.
Except for the Final Fantasy, Tifa is in it, yes. The other side of it, though, 3 newcomers.
Well, 2 newcomers and 1 World Tour character.
Sure, he's still going to count as a newcomer, but yes, the character itself is one that is a known quantity. But because of the way World Tour works, like, we don't know what his moveset or anything is going to be, because he just has Luke's moveset when you fight him in the beginning of that game, right? He's not his own character. But what's weirder about this for me, like, I'm all for newcomers. I'm happy to see some brand new characters. I think it's very weird to have an entire DLC pass be that and a guest character. There's a lot of people who love a lot of Street Fighter characters. I would have loved to see Dudley. I would have loved to see Makoto. I would have loved to see just one returning character from the vastness of, like, a bunch of fucking characters that haven't come back yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I've always been a Claw player, so you can imagine my disappointment. I mean, I would have settled for them announcing Gen, but that dude's probably
sure.
just died of old age by now. Um, but yeah, so my take on this is kind of a tinfoil hat take. Um, I think that with all of the leaks, they decided that they needed to maybe pivot, or at least throw up a smokescreen of sorts. Like, so the characters that got announced are Yasmin, Arjun, and Bosch, right?
Yeah.
And we know a little bit about Bosch because he's in the World Tour, but the other two characters are complete mysteries. And you know, they had some really good key art and little animations, but I almost feel like maybe there's something they're not telling us.
The part that's crazy is just that, like, we got the little key animations and stuff. We didn't get anything in game for any of these characters.
Right. Which is part of
And
my tinfoil hat conspiracy.
and Yasmin is out in like 2 months.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean,
Why didn't you just show an in-engine of her? What the fuck?
well, I probably for length. I think that, you know, they wanted to let's be clear here, okay? Let's be honest with what this was. This was a segue into talking about Final Fantasy VII.
It was. And I will say the actual Final Fantasy VII Part 3 Revelation?
Revelation, that's correct.
Okay. Was the biggest surprise for me in this entire thing. Not
Yeah.
like I'm excited, but it was surprising. And that's because the Sony State of Play was like a couple days earlier.
Yeah.
And
no, well, so that's the thing, right? They're bringing it to everything simultaneously.
they are. That's the big like thing about it. But the thing that made this so surprising to me is when I didn't see it at that State of Play, my brain said, okay, we'll see it at the end of this year or early next year, because it's not going to come out till 2027 to hit the 30-year anniversary either way, which is true. It's still going to be a 2027 game. But when it didn't show up at the Sony thing, because all the other ones have been timed exclusive, all the other parts of this remake have been timed exclusive on Sony platforms, plenty of other reasons to think like, oh yes, it'll show at Sony because it is a Sony first project as far as the way that this thing has been coming out. So seeing it here as, hey, it's coming to everything at the same time, all that kind of stuff was like, oh, that is fucking shocking. Like, it's the biggest shocking surprise for sure.
And I think that it says a lot about Square Enix's relationship with Sony. I mean,
yes,
it's easy to be
sure
like,
does.
I think that it's easy for them to contextualize as like, this is a really big deal. We want everyone to be able to play it. But I think that it really underneath that veil, it's more about Sony and Square Enix. So obviously I'm just a guy sitting in my armchair here, so I can't really tell you what's going on, but I think that maybe the contracts that were written up were a little too suffocating for Square Enix. And, you know, looking at the current environment for how game releases are happening, looking at the different platforms, looking at the market, costs, and all that, it just doesn't make sense to limit such a humongous release to just one console for that long of a period. And I'm speculating here, but I would imagine that, you know, there's probably plenty of people who don't have the Sony PlayStation 5 or 5 Pro who instead watch the game streamed from someone else. And then they're like, well, I mean, I could get the game when it comes out, but I feel like I'm satisfied just having experienced that, right?
Yeah, 9 months later, do I really need to still want to get it on my PC?
Exactly. So, I think that just business-wise, this is the smart move. I think that there's going to be lots of people, maybe people who didn't even necessarily play the other two parts, who are just going to be like, this is the big game right now, I got to play it.
Sure.
And they're probably going to be like, where's Aerith? Anyway, yeah, so it was a big deal for a lot of reasons. They showed the trailer, and then Jeff was like, all right, also, here's the director again, and the director comes out, like, all right, here's more trailer. Well, here's Matt Mercer, and then they're like, all right, cool, that was the extra stuff that we're gonna show you, and then Matt Mercer's like, oh, actually, here's more, and then they end that one, and then the director's like, actually, here's more, and so it just kept happening, and for such a big release, and for people who have been waiting for this, it must have been like such a treat, you know?
Yeah. I work with someone who absolutely loves Final Fantasy VII, loves these remakes, and I was able to just be like, hey, well, this must have been exciting for you, huh? And they're like, yep, I know exactly what I'm doing next year, and it's going to be the rest of my life. And I was like, okay, sick.
That's pretty dramatic. Um, well, let me say, like, as someone who's been going to Fanaman, not to wrap this back around, Final Fantasy VII has always been popular. Yes. Whether there's the remakes queued up, whether people were just living off nostalgia, whether it was the representation that was found on the fringe of Kingdom Hearts, people never stopped caring about Final Fantasy VII. And I think that Hamaguchi-san, the director of Square Enix right now, who has been spearheading this game, really, really does genuinely care that this is what people want. Like, he's expressed as much in the things that he said. He's used specific quotes in trailers, like having the characters say things that make it sound like they're not necessarily talking to something contextually in the game, but rather addressing the audience,
Sure.
Cloud saying things like, I couldn't have gotten this far without you guys. I want to make sure all your wishes come true. This it's very clear. Like, even when he was announcing that last part of the trailer, the last piece of media that they showed that showed the spring 2027 release date, he was like, I don't like to leave a story unfinished. And, like, it's all just them, like, layering in these statements about, like, yeah, we really care about this. And so, I want to give him a lot of credit. I know that literally after that presentation, he drove to Max's house, Maximilian Dude, and then he sat down with Max, and they did an interview in Max's house. Like, this is a guy who really, really cares. So, I hope that it's everything everybody wants, not just for them, but for him too.
Yeah.
Lots of respect. Okay, so that was Summer Games Fest. You said you want to touch on some things from other presentations that kind of were in orbit.
So that was Summer Game Fest. That was the big Keighley event. But, we don't have E3 anymore, but this is still basically E3 weekend. And so, like, Sony did their thing. I really just want to touch on two things from Sony because I don't have a Sony platform thing. I'm not going to be able to play most of these games anyway. But they did do an announcement for another bunch of characters in the Tokon Fighting Souls game that's coming out.
They did.
And this was the Villains team, and the Villains team is much more exciting than most of the other characters that have come out, I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I mean, we all were expecting Magneto, Doctor Doom. Like, that's kind of a given.
We knew Doctor Doom, Magneto was expected.
Green Goblin
was a wild card. That one, I don't think anyone had on their dock. And the Carnage instead of Venom was a theory that got kind of confirmed in this. But they are making that game look better and better every time they show stuff. But it's still probably not going to be for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's clear that they care about what they're doing. I mean, the developers have never, like, really half-assed anything that they've worked on. But at the same time, I think that it's just difficult to, like, see this becoming, like, a big thing. And maybe that's me being a naysayer, like, talking doom on it, but I don't know. I think that, I don't know, maybe I'm just tired of Marvel, man. Maybe just over Marvel.
I think there's some Marvel fatigue in my life as well. But the other one that I definitely want to at least mention is they did a big presentation for the new God of War game coming out. And it is not a Kratos God of War. It is his dead wife from the 2018 one and her adventure in God of War Luffy or Laufey. I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to pronounce it.
Laufey.
I gotta say, the presentation they did looked like God of War 2018. Like
I
maybe a
gotta
little more
say,
acrobatic, but like they had said some stuff about this game's development earlier, saying like, "Hey, this is going to be different from what we've been doing." Blah blah blah, and it is different in that you're not Kratos. It is different in that you are not going to be with those characters you've been having fun with. The game itself looks extremely the same to me.
yeah, I think, I mean, I sat and I watched that whole thing, okay? And as someone who's not a big God of War person, um, like I feel like the tone was all over the place. Where it's like,
A little
okay,
bit.
we open with a funeral. It's like, oh, this is sad, and then you immediately go into like fucking Coco spirit animal showing up and acting all cute, and then she goes through her movement tutorials, and then it's like, okay, you're literally being enslaved by these mix of what seems to be like Sanskrit, Asura, and what I guess Egyptian looking
Yep.
people, and then it's like, okay, I've lost the thread here, and then you get thrown in a bone cage, and then it's like, here's a gelatinous cube with a sword that talks in it, and it's like, what? Okay, like,
Yeah,
is this
like
a character
what
that I
is
should know
actually
about?
happening? And that's the other piece. That cube looked like, oh, maybe this is like a little side character for this little part of the game. And then they showed us the key art, and that cube is like on the fucking cover of this game. And I'm kind of like, oh no.
Yeah, but it's
Oh
listen.
no.
Let me get through my thought here, man. Okay, before you cut ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm
Um,
sorry.
so she's stuck in the cage, and she makes very fast friends with the gelatinous cube and the talking sword, which is quick to clarify, it's not a talking sword, it's talking ribbons attached to a sword. And like she's having trouble using her magic, but then the cube kind of talks her through it somehow, where suddenly she can use her magic, and it's just like it doesn't make any cohesive sense to me. And I don't know if it's because I don't know enough God of War or what, but it seems like there's some real choices going on here.
There's some choices going on for sure. Um, those were the only really two big ones from the Sony thing that I felt like I wanted to bring up. Microsoft also did a thing on Sunday. Um, I'll admit I'm not really paying much attention to what Microsoft is doing these days for a bunch of reasons, not the least of which is the BDS movement, but also just like they have not been putting out anything that I feel like I would care about for a while here. Um, but at their event, they had some third party stuff that was exciting. Persona 6 got officially announced. I know that's big for a lot of people. Yourself, maybe?
Yeah, no, I definitely heard about this. I actually heard about this while I was doing the barbecue because other people were talking about it. And it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, well, yeah, there's gonna be a Persona 6. Um, how it will be distinct from the other games is going to be the real question for me. Because they went back and they remade 3 and they remade 4, and if anything, those games got made more like 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like 5 has become the thing in which we measure other Persona games against. And so the idea of them iterating and like doing a 6th game is like, okay, well, is this going to be a lot like 5, or are we actually going to mix things up again?
Yeah.
And then how long before we remake 5? Um, so yeah, I mean, I obviously the is going to have repercussions. There's going to have waves rippling out in the anime community that loves Persona.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but as far as what that actually means, it's like, well, it's an announcement. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
We
it's not a
also
surprising one.
we also got our first real look at the Crazy Taxi game, which looked like
Yeah.
a remake and then turned out to be something called World Tour, where they are giving you, I think, like 5 different cities to drive and taxi around in. Uh, and other than that, it looks like a fucking high res Crazy Taxi game. Like, sick, great. They put the Oh God, what was the name of the band?
Oh no.
Offspring? The Offspring?
Yes, that's
Yes.
correct. I
Who?
didn't want to give it to you.
Oh God, I was about to have a panic attack. Going, how have I forgotten the Offspring?
Yeah, you're the
They
big
put
crazy
the song
taxi
in it.
guy.
They put the fucking song in it. That's the thing.
Great. They need to put the song in it. They know that they need to put the song in it. And I'm glad that they understand that. There's actually
Yes.
2 songs, but yeah. Um, okay. Well, here's the question. Have they updated it to, like, I didn't watch this part, so you have to tell me.
Hmm.
Did they update it so that each of the characters represents a different rideshare company? Is one of the
Uh,
cars self-driving?
they only really showed one of the drivable characters.
Is it
So
BD Joe?
yeah.
Good.
Oh wait, no.
Oh, bad.
Wait, there's
Which
BD
one was it?
Joe, there's Gina, there's Gus. Who was the fourth one?
I think the name's just Axel.
It might have been Axel. I think
See,
it was
this
Axel was the one.
you can tell we're real
because
big crazy
Axel's
taxi
the one
fans.
that like it defaults to, right?
Yeah, he's the one with the green hair.
Yeah, yeah. It was the green hair guy's the one they showed for the trailer.
Okay, so it's just Axel. Um, okay. Well, I mean, no rideshare representation, no automatically driving cars. I don't feel like this is the modern update, but it sounds like it's going to be fun anyway. Uh, when they say that there's multiple cities, is it one big map? Will you have to do fares between cities?
Great question. I'm gonna guess that it's 5 maps, is what I interpreted it as, but I'm not really sure.
Well, I can't wait to see you stream it. I know that
I
you've always been a big crazy taxi guy.
do
I want
like
to see your...
that original game a lot. The last one I want to talk about from the Microsoft thing today. They announced Wolong 2. I like fucking games made by Team Ninja. Surprise. I just finished Neo 3. I liked Wolong more than most people did. They're making a sequel. Cool. That's all I'm going to say about it.
That wasn't already announced? I feel like it was. Maybe
No,
this
the
is my
sequel
brain.
to Wolong had not been announced yet. This was brand new. I wasn't sure they were going to do one because I don't think Wolong did all that well for them, but apparently did well enough.
It's hard to tell nowadays. Sometimes things just happen.
So true.
Speaking of things that just happened, before all of the Summer Game Fest stuff even happened, Nintendo had a direct for Star Fox.
They sure did.
We do need to talk about Star Fox.
I don't like the way it looks. I think it looks too much like real animals in a way that is not cool to look at.
I mean, here's my conspiracy theory, because I've been having a lot of these lately. It's a remake of Star Fox 64. Like, that much is very clear. They've added cutscenes between missions, it looks like. And, you know, they tout it as you're going to get to see a lot more of the characters and their relationships and whatever, and that's all fine and dandy. I think that I lean towards what Neil's saying in that I don't like the character designs that much, but I also understand that they were trying to make them look more like the puppets that were on the cover of the original Super Nintendo game
Sure.
and used to advertise that. And it's like, that's an aesthetic choice that I think is very much justified by the fact that you need to demonstrate that the Switch 2 has more graphical processing power, which is absolutely the opposite philosophy of what Nintendo normally does, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's more about like having a distinct look than it is about pushing polygons, but it's what they're doing, and you know, I think that whether or not it's successful, there's going to be a lot of opinions on how they look. But here's the crackpot theory: they did the direct about 2 months ahead of the release, right? Like, it's coming out like July, late July,
something like that.
I think there's going to be another direct that's going to happen closer to the release date where we're going to find out that it's not merely a remake. Because they showed at the end of it a very long cinematic that was kind of like the precursor to the events of Star Fox 64, where it's his dad going to Venom and Pigma's betrayal and all of that. And the idea of them doing all of that as a cinematic without any sort of gameplay tied to it is bizarre. Like, there's so many assets, there's so many things that they set up. The idea of there's nothing playable tied to that doesn't sit. So I think that there's at least going to be some additional missions. Ideally, there would be a bigger reveal where there's like another campaign. But I'm hoping that it's not merely a remake. Because you know what? Love Star Fox 64. Played the shit out of Star Fox 64. They remade it for the 3DS. I played that. Loved it. They're remaking it again. I'm not upset about that. I think that they're playing it safe because Star Fox has been one of those cursed franchises where they just can't seem to get something to like take off, if you'll excuse the pun. So they're playing it safe. They're playing it safe by doing the thing that they know people like. But you can only do that so many times. I don't want to pay $70 for Star Fox 64 again, even if it looks better. Like, if there's cutscenes, I can watch them online. So, I just hope that there's more to this.
Yeah, that's fair. I also like Star Fox a lot, but it to me just looks like a remake, and I'm not excited for just a remake of a Star Fox game. Like, that N64 game is fucking fantastic. That's all I need.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, it warranted a remake, and it got it.
Yeah.
And now they're just... It's good, Nintendo. I get it. You can't just ride its coattails forever. So again, I'm hoping that there's something else there. And if there's not, then I'll say happy Star Fox for this decade, because it's going to be another 10 years before they make a new one.
Probably. And then for one last piece of news, everybody, from just, I think, the other week, Steam Deck is getting a price increase.
Yeah.
A huge one. This was like a 40% increase or something like that, going from like $650 to $900 or something.
Shout out to David, who got my Steam Deck for free, you fucking bastard. Like, I probably could have sold that for a pretty fucking penny. Like, no, I mean, he's my friend. He helped me move and stuff, and I was just like,
sure.
I can't justify having this anymore. But goddamn, did he make out like a goddamn bandit, considering these price hikes.
Yeah. Like, I had no plan on getting one anyway, so not a big deal for me personally, but these ongoing market conditions that our world has been experiencing for, let me look at the calendar, feels like forever. Great. Have been a nightmare. And everything is going up in price. We talked about PlayStation prices going up. The Switch has gone up more than once. Consoles used to get cheaper after time, and that's just not happening anymore. And now getting anything new is borderline prohibitively expensive. I found it interesting to see how much we talked about the Sony pivot back to, hey, we're not putting stuff on PC anymore. The Microsoft one today, or during the Game Fest stuff, also had a lot more of like, hey, this is going to be console exclusive. They were doing a lot more things that sounded like they are trying to push in that direction again. And I just find that hard to square, considering the price hikes on all of this hardware has gotten to a point where I don't see a lot of people wanting to buy these things to get any of these games, even if you are putting exclusives on them. I think a lot of people, myself, for example, are going to do my best to avoid buying anything new that is hardware related and hope that this thing can last out whatever we're suffering through until things can get back to a reasonable, consumer-friendly status quo.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, if I'm going to put a silver lining on it, it's the idea that if you're increasing the price of the consoles like this late into their lifespan, then chances are the development cycle is going to last longer too. So you hope that no one's like looking to develop a new console right now. I'm looking at you, Microsoft, and expecting it to be able to stand on its own legs, when really the way that you're going to make out, like with profit in this environment, is to develop for the consoles that people already have.
Yeah.
And I mean, even Nintendo did that. They're like, don't develop for the Switch 2 yet. Just make Switch 1 games, please. So yeah, I think that it's really stupid that this is what it's come down to. But at the same time, I I had good timing. I was very lucky that I refreshed my computer when I did. I'm very lucky to have gotten my stupid Chinese AYN Thor device when I did.
Yeah.
So yeah, I my condolences to anyone who's like lacking hardware
Yeah.
or looking to build in 2026, but just don't. Like I hate to say it, but maybe just try and find something used.
Yeah, for sure.
Steal one from a store.
We've already gone pretty long here. Did we want to try to hit any of the stuff we've been playing?
I don't think that we can, man. We've gone so long for all of these presentations and news.
Okay.
I know that you have Mina the Hollower in the chamber.
Yeah, I haven't started it yet. I know you have started it, but I'll be starting that real soon here.
I am 3 generators deep, and you'll know what that means when you start playing.
Cool.
Amazing game, but we'll talk more about it next time.
Awesome. I guess just so I don't forget to ever mention it, I played through Ghostline Miguel. You can watch that playthrough on YouTube. That game is a real throwback to classic platforming. Literally just move and jump. There's not even a run button, and they do a really good job with it. That's it.
I know that you say Ghostline Miguel, but I heard Ghostline Miguel. I was like, wait, there's a Ghostline sequel called Ghostline Miguel?
Oh my god.
Well, we got our title. Words. You got our title.
Thank you everybody for listening, and video games goodbye.
Video games goodbye.
Audio Games is hosted and produced by Matthew Lane and Neil Jimenez. Our theme music is Recharging by Gooset. If you'd like to reach out to us, please email us at audiogamespodcast@gmail.com. At the anime convention, was there a bunch of Witch Hat Atelier stuff like I thought there would be?
Neil, in order to tell you that, I would need to know what it looked like.
It like teal robes and a teal pointed cap.
I mean, I saw pointed caps. I could say that.
The pointed caps are probably the biggest part. I'll get a picture for you.
You get a picture for me.
So it's like those pointed hats, and then they have these like teal robes. Those are like the main characters.
I definitely saw a few of these.
Yeah,
I wasn't inundated by them.
Okay, they weren't like everywhere yet. Okay.
If I actually sat down with my friends like as the convention was wrapping up, and I like asked them like, if you had to describe this convention, like how would you describe it to someone? And they're like, I'm not sure. And I was like, well, I would explain it by saying that it was K-pop Demon Hunters 6-7 the convention. Oh. And there was a lot of K-pop Demon Hunters, and there was a lot of people doing the 6-7, and I was like, yeah, that's how I would describe it.
I would have expected the K-pop Demon Hunter stuff to be a last year thing, but still popular.
I saw like 3 separate performances of Golden.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Is that a bad thing? I don't know. But it certainly has its staying power, and, there is a sequel coming out, so I expect to have to enter more of that.
Fair. God, is there really a sequel coming out? Fuck. Of course there is. It's popular.
K-popular.